I'm Zoe. 3 weeks ago, I walked into my brother's promotion party with a small gift box and a forced smile. But I walked out with the taste of blood in my mouth, strands of hair on the floor, and my dignity trampled in front of nearly 60 people. My father landed a straight punch to my face and dragged me out of the ballroom. My mother stood there laughing as if she were watching a show while my brother clapped and said, "You deserved that." No one moved. I stood pressed into a corner against the glossy wood-paneled wall, clutching my handbag as if it could shield me from every gaze. The West Hill Hotel's ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers, thick red carpet, and the scent of wine mixed with jazz music. It was the kind of place my parents adored, but it had never belonged to me. Today, everyone was there to celebrate my brother, Ethan, the family's pride, a decorated officer. And me, I was just Zoe the daughter they rarely mentioned, except when they needed a punchline. I told myself I came because it was the right thing to do. Even though they had never shown up for any important event in my life, I still had to be there for family. At least that's what I thought while I was still outside the door. I spotted my mother moving from guest to guest, pearls glinting on her neck, her well-rehearsed smile in place. My father stood at the bar, drink in hand, surrounded by a few of Ethan's colleagues. Ethan was in the center of the room, soaking up praise like it was the air he needed to breathe. A woman whose name I barely remembered passed by, tilting her head, saying, "It's nice you came." Her tone was polite but tinged with awkwardness, as if my presence was an act of charity. I smiled and replied wouldn't miss it, knowing full well it was a lie. My mother saw me. Her smile shifted slightly. She walked over heels, tapping on the floor like cold little hammers. "You didn't have to come if you didn't have anything nice to say," she said loudly enough for a nearby couple to hear. They glanced at me with a mix of pity and curiosity. "Just being here counts as commentary," I replied softly, but her eyes darkened instantly. Before I could turn away, Ethan appeared, whiskey in hand, his uniform crisp metals gleaming under the lights. "Oh, Zoe," he said loudly enough for those nearby to hear, almost forgot. "What is it you do? Graphic design cute." I felt my hands tremble, but kept my tone calm. At least my work doesn't need a cheerleading squad to feel valuable. Ethan's smile faltered for a second. But before I could savor it, my father's shadow loomed over us. His eyes were bloodshot, his jaw clenched. "What did you just say?" His voice was low, cold, and it made my stomach tighten. I didn't even have time to answer before his hand swung. The sound of his fist hitting my face echoed through the ballroom, drowning out the music. Conversation stopped. I staggered, stunned, as he grabbed my hair and yanked me backward. My scalp burned, my vision blurred, and my body was dragged across the polished wood floor. I clearly heard the collective gasp from the crowd, a heavy silence. Then, cutting through it, came my mother's laugh, sharp, high, and full of delight. Ethan stood next to her, clapping 3 deliberate times, adding coldly, "You deserve it." The large doors shut behind us, the hotel hallway colder and quieter, but no safer. My father let go of me just outside, making me stumble and catch myself on the wall. My lip was split, blood dripping onto the blue dress I had saved for months to buy. My scalp throbbed where his hand had been. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I walked straight ahead, each step heavy as lead. By the time I reached the parking lot, my hands shook so badly I could barely open my purse for the keys. When the car door slammed shut, that sound seemed to block out my mother's laugh and my brother's clapping. I looked into the rearview mirror. The woman staring back, swollen lip, tangled hair, tear-reddened eyes, looked both unfamiliar and pitiful. I wiped the blood from my chin and whispered, "Tonight isn't just a party. This is the start of a war." I gripped the steering wheel tightly, started the car. The highway home was empty, but in my head everything was rushing. My father's face, my mother's laugh, Ethan's smirk, over and over. I drove back to my small apartment on the outskirts of Maplewood, rows of low houses sliding quietly past the window. When the streetlights cast shadows across the steering wheel, I realized my hands were clenched so tightly my knuckles were white. The worst pain wasn't from the cut on my lip. It was the chilling familiarity, as if I had stepped back into a chapter of my life I thought I'd long since closed. For 28 years, I had always been the other child in the family. The day I was born, my mother joked to the nurse that she hoped I wouldn't fall short of my brother, as if that was the only standard I needed to meet. That remark followed me through my childhood, repeated at countless dinners, gatherings, Christmases, only the comparisons changed. Ethan, 4 years older, was praised as a born warrior, the one who upholds the family's honor. Ever since he joined the military, even his smallest achievements were celebrated as monumental. And me, whenever I earned a scholarship or completed a major project, I got a half smile or a comment like, well, that's nice, but always led to an example about Ethan. When I was 16, I won first place in a statewide poster design contest. I proudly showed my certificate to my father, but he barely glanced at it before saying, if only you spent your time on something more practical like Ethan. The next day, the certificate vanished from my desk. I searched for years before learning my mother had packed it away in a box of old things in the basement, alongside items no one cared about anymore. That same year, I first experienced what family violence really meant. One night, after talking back when my father yelled at me, I was shoved hard against the hallway wall. My head hit their wedding photo frame, shattering the glass. I vividly remember my mother's expression, not shock or concern, but a flicker of enjoyment, as if she were watching a dramatic scene. Later she told me, "Don't make a big deal of it. Ethan wouldn't want to hear about this." In the years that followed, I learned to stay silent to hide the times I was scolded or belittled. Every holiday gathering, I sat at the kids' table even as an adult. Ethan sat at the main table between my parents, basking in praise. Many times as I quietly cleared plates, I overheard them joking about the failed artist's daughter, as if I wasn't even there. I once believed that was my fate, to be the backdrop for the star of the family. But when I left Maplewood to attend college for design, I discovered that out in the world no one knew me as Ethan's sister. I was judged by my work, my ideas. It was the rare time I felt respected. Yet every time I came home, the cycle repeated. They asked about Ethan, first telling stories of what he'd done, won, or who he'd met, then turned to me with a half-hearted, "Your work's still going okay." If I said anything they didn't like, the air grew heavy, ending with one of my mother's cutting remarks or my father's derisive laugh. Worse, Ethan didn't just enjoy the favoritism, he fueled it. I once overheard him telling friends, "Zoe will never be strong enough to leave mom and dad's grip." I walked past pretending not to care, but inside my chest felt crushed. Those memories came flooding back as I shut off my car in the garage. I sat there for a few minutes, listening to the ticking of the cooling engine. What happened at the West Hill Hotel tonight was only the tip of the iceberg, a truth that had been simmering for years. They had never seen me as an equal, and they knew I had no one to defend me if I fought back. I walked into my apartment, turned on the kitchen light. The warm glow fell across the white wall, where a few of my own paintings hung. Not a glamorous gallery, but they were pieces I had created with my own hands. No parents, no Ethan. I touched the frame, reminding myself, I'm no longer that 16-year-old shoved into a wall. I knew that if I acted on anger alone, I wouldn't get far. I needed clarity. But I also understood something else. Tonight had severed the last thread, keeping me in endure mode. They wanted me to believe I was weak, dependent, and would stay silent. I stood in the bathroom, staring at myself under the harsh white light. My left cheek had turned a deep purple, my lip was swollen, and a few strands of hair had been yanked hard enough to redden my scalp. I knew these injuries would fade quickly, but if I didn't capture them now, they would disappear just like before, and then everything would be denied as if it had never happened. I grabbed my phone and turned on the camera. At first my hands shook so badly the images came out blurry. I took a deep breath, tightened my grip on the phone, then photographed every angle, my face, the scratch on my shoulder, and the patch of scalp where my hair had been pulled. I recorded several short videos stating the time, location, and describing exactly what happened at the West Hill Hotel. My voice was raspy, but each word was clear. When I finished, I set the phone down and leaned against the wall. The question kept looping in my head, what will I do with all of this? I already knew the answer. If I wanted to end this cycle, I needed someone with the legal skills to make them pay, and the backbone not to cave under my family's pressure. Scrolling through my contacts, I skimmed past hundreds of names, mostly casual acquaintances, until I stopped on one, Dana Lewis. We had been in the same master's program in media arts, but she had dropped out to study law. Back when we were both in Austin, I had helped Dana through a financial crisis, lending her books, buying her meals, even covering part of her rent when she lost her job suddenly. She had hugged me then and said, "You saved me, Zoe." I won't forget. Now, Dana was a well-known attorney specializing in domestic abuse and property disputes. I never thought I'd use our connection like this, but things had changed. I dialed her number. The phone rang 3 times before a groggy, husky voice answered. "Zoe, you're calling in the middle of the night. What's going on?" I tried to keep my voice steady, but it cracked anyway. "Dana, I need you. Right now. No one else can help." A brief silence. Then her tone sharpened. "Tell me." I told her everything from the moment I walked into the hall, the confrontation with my mother and Ethan, to my father punching me and dragging me outside. I didn't leave out a single detail, not my mother's laugh, nor Ethan's applause. I heard Dana sigh on the other end. "Do you have proof I took photos and videos?" I said. 9 a.m. Tomorrow, my office in Austin. We'll go step by step. I promise, Zoe, this time they won't be able to deny it. After hanging up, I knew I needed someone else, not a lawyer, but someone who could protect me and gather details the court or police might overlook. That someone was Rick Morgan, the landlord of my apartment building. Rick was in his early 60s, a former Dallas police investigator. He lived alone, spoke little, but had eyes that caught every small detail. I called Rick. 1 ring, and he picked up. "Zoe, this late, what's wrong, Rick?" I was assaulted. "By my father. At the West Hill Hotel. Tonight." He paused for a few seconds, then lowered his voice. "Are you seriously hurt?" "I'm okay for now. But I need help investigating. A lot of people saw it, and I suspect there's more to uncover." Rick's reply was short. "Email me everything you just told me, plus the photos and videos. I'll start immediately. Don't go out alone until I say it's safe." Minutes later, my inbox pinged with a message from him received. "I'll see if anyone filmed it. And Zoe, if your family's tied to money, I'll find it." I sat at my kitchen table, opened my laptop, attached all the photos and videos, and sent them to both Rick and Dana. As I hit send, something shifted inside me. It felt like laying the first brick of a wall that could finally protect me. That night, I didn't sleep. I brewed a pot of black coffee and cup after cup reviewed everything I had sent, checking each detail. I knew the next steps would be brutal. My family had always shaped the story to suit themselves. The fact that I now held evidence would make them see me as a threat. Near dawn, Rick texted might be security cameras in the hotel hallway. I'll get there before they wipe the footage. A moment later, Dana messaged, "Bring all originals to my office. We'll go to the hospital to document your injuries. Don't let anyone talk you into letting this go." I turned off the screen and leaned back. A pale light seeped through the window, signaling morning. I realized I was ready not to apologize or explain, but to start a fight I knew, once begun, would leave no way back. The next morning, I arrived at Dana's office carrying a bag of documents, a hard drive, and the USB Rick had just given me. The air in Austin was crisp, the thin golden sunlight just enough to hint that winter was approaching. When I stepped inside, Dana was already seated behind her desk, her laptop open beside a thick stack of files. "Sit down," she said, her eyes sharp. "Rick sent me some things. But before you look, I need you to be prepared." My heartbeat quickened. Prepared for what? Dana opened a blue folder, revealing printed bank statements and trust documents. The lines of numbers were long and dry, but it only took me a few minutes to spot something alarming: tens of thousands of dollars withdrawn regularly over the past 18 months from a trust account in my name. I looked up, stunned. "This trust, it's mine. My grandfather set it up when I was 10 to ensure I had a financial foundation for the future." Dana nodded. "Correct. And under the trust agreement, your father Thomas is the trustee until you turn 30. But here," she pointed to a $120,000 transfer, labeled Horizon Advancement Leadership Program. Rick checked it. "It's the name of a so-called leadership trainings fund, But in reality, it's a disguised bribe to fast-track Ethan's promotion in the military. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. In my mind, the image of Ethan's promotion party came rushing back, the laughter, the applause, my father's raised glass. It turned out all that glitter was built on my money. I leaned toward Dana. Are you certain? She pulled a few more pages forward. Not just once. At least 7 transfers totaling more than $600,000. And there's also an $85,000 deposit into Ethan's personal account right before he took his new post. I clenched my jaw, swallowing my anger. So he took my money, turned it into leverage for Ethan, then humiliated me in front of everyone, and thought I'd stay silent. Dana closed the file, her voice low. Zoe, this is theft and financial fraud. If taken to court, this isn't a family dispute anymore, it's a criminal case. The door opened softly. Rick walked in holding a large envelope. Got something else for you, he said, setting it on the desk. I opened it to find copies of emails between my father and a man named Carl Benson. In one, my father wrote, do whatever it takes as long as Caleb's sorry. Ethan gets promoted this cycle. I'll make sure the agreed support comes through. Rick took a seat, locking eyes with me. Carl is a former officer now, an advisor for the Horizon program. He took money from your father in exchange for padding Ethan's service record. This is direct proof the training was just a cover. I flipped through the pages, my grip tightening. So every achievement he bragged about was bought with my money. Rick nodded. And not only that, part of the funds were laundered through 2 shell companies in Florida. I'm investigating who owns them. I leaned back, feeling both sick and strangely alert. Every piece started to fit: the unconditional favoritism toward Ethan, the endless criticism toward me, and now the undeniable proof they had used me as a financial tool. Dana broke the silence. Zoe, what do you want to do next? I met her gaze. I want everything filed into the legal record. No cover-ups. No negotiations. Rick smirked. I'll handle gathering more evidence. But be ready. Once they know you've uncovered this, they'll hit back hard. I gave a faint smile. I'm used to hard hits. Dana opened her planner, marking a date. Tomorrow we meet with an independent auditor. The goal is to create a full report to submit with the lawsuit. If they try to deny it, we'll have the numbers and the paperwork to prove it. Rick stood, grabbing his coat. I'll also try to reach someone who was at the party. Maybe someone recorded what happened. That video paired with the financial evidence would be devastating. I nodded, clutching the folder to my chest. For the first time in years, I didn't feel strangled by the narrative they had built. Instead, I held a weapon they never saw coming. As I stepped out of Dana's office, the midday sun spilled across the pavement, and I realized I was standing taller. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop while you still can. I stared at it for a few seconds, then deleted it. There was no turning back now. 2 days after Rick gave me the file, I got a call from a familiar landline. My mother's voice came through, sweet to the point of being fake. Zoe, your father and I want to meet to talk, settle everything as a family. I paused, looking out my apartment window. We're at the house. Tonight. Your father will be there. Ethan, too. I agreed, not because I believed her, but because I wanted to look them in the eye when I gave my answer. That evening, I drove into the gated neighborhood where I grew up. The rows of maple trees had begun to change color, but the peaceful view only made me feel suffocated. As I stepped onto the porch, the door opened before I could knock. My mother stood there, wearing a pale pink cardigan, smiling as if she'd never mocked me at the West Hill Hotel. Thank you for coming, Zoe, she said softly, her eyes flicking to the faint bruise still visible on my cheek. I said nothing and stepped inside. The scent of scented candles and polished wood filled the living room, a room always reserved for important guests. My father sat in an armchair wearing a gray suit, his hand resting on a stack of papers on the glass table. Ethan lounged in the chair opposite designer, hoodie legs crossed, smirking. Sit down, my father ordered in his low voice. I stayed standing. Say it. I don't have much time. He raised an eyebrow, but slid the papers toward me. Here's the agreement. You'll get a substantial sum to end all of this, no lawsuits, no public noise. In return, you sign here. A quick glance at the first page, bold print, confidentiality agreement, waiver of right to sue. Beneath it, restrictive clauses. A trap wrapped in the word generous. Ethan leaned back, arms crossed. You're overreacting, Zoe. Just a minor incident. You want to ruin the whole family's reputation over that? I met his gaze. A punch, and being dragged in front of nearly 60 people, is a minor incident, my mother cut in, her voice dripping with false sympathy. We're only trying to protect everyone, including you. This wouldn't look good if it went public. That's when I spotted the metallic glint peeking from behind a lampshade, a mini recorder. They wanted me to snap so they could twist my words. I exhaled slowly and set the papers down. Clever, but not enough. My father's voice hardened. Zoe, don't make yourself the enemy of this family. I leaned toward him, my tone low and precise. Family doesn't steal my money to buy your son a promotion, then hit me when I speak up. Family doesn't set traps to protect a fake reputation. My mother flinched. Ethan's smile faltered. You have no proof, he muttered. I smiled faintly. Then keep thinking that. I stood, grabbing my bag. I came here to give you one last chance. I guess we're done. As I reached the door, my father called after me, anger lacing his voice. You'll regret this. I turned back, meeting his eyes. No. But you will. The door closed behind me, shutting out the scent of candles and pretense. I walked down the steps, the evening wind slipping under my collar. My phone buzzed in my bag. Rick's text got a copy of the emails between Thomas and Carl. Clear bribery deal. Need to meet ASAP. I pressed my lips together and quickened my pace toward the car. In my mind, I pictured my parents and Ethan sitting there, convinced they'd regained control, unaware the rules of the game had just changed. That night, I sat in the corner of a 24/7 cafe in South Austin, sipping a bitter espresso to keep myself awake. The glass door was fogged with condensation, reflecting my shadow along with two people walking toward the table, Dana and Rick. Dana arrived first, still in a dark, neatly pressed suit, but her eyes held a decisive glint. Rick followed, wearing a worn leather jacket, carrying a folder of documents and a small USB drive. Sit down. Zoe. Dana began placing a new file in front of me. Rick just got us what we've been waiting for. Rick didn't waste time sliding the USB toward me. Security cameras from the West Hill Hotel. A security guard I used to work with backed up the footage before management erased it. You'll want to see this. I plugged the USB into my laptop. The screen showed a brightly lit ballroom, then jumped to the moment my father lunged forward, the sound of a punch ringing out clearly, followed by him, grabbing my hair and dragging me toward the door. My mother stood right behind him, her hand covering her mouth, but clearly laughing, while Ethan, unmistakable, clapped 3 times, mouthing something. I paused the video, pushed my chair back, a chill running down my spine. So, there's no denying it now. Dana nodded. Zoe, this is a direct hit to the perfect family image they've built for years. Combined with the financial records, we have a complete picture abuse, embezzlement fraud. Rick opened the bag, pulling out several printed screenshots of emails and wire transfers. I've traced withdrawals from your trust fund to 3 shell companies. All of them lead to the same intermediary account belonging to a man named Carl Benson, who is paid to secure Ethan's promotion. I ran my hand along the edge of the file, feeling like I was holding the key to a door they had locked me out of for so long. So, how do we do this? Dana leaned forward, lowering her voice. The plan has 3 steps. 1, file both civil and criminal suits, while simultaneously sending a complaint to the Financial Crimes Unit. 2, leak the original video to a journalist I trust, someone who has investigated major corruption cases in Austin. 3, when the article runs, we release the entire set of evidence on public platforms, making sure they can't control the narrative. Rick added, I'll handle security for you. Once the footage is out, they'll try to reach you, maybe even threaten you. You need to be ready and keep in touch with me at all times. I leaned back, looking at them both. What if they counterattack by editing the footage framing me? Dana replied immediately. We'll move first. I'll attach the original time-stamped, digitally certified copy to the court filing. If they create a doctored version, it becomes proof they intentionally distorted the truth. I gave a small, humorless smile. I gave them the chance to walk away and they chose the dirty game. Now I'll play by my rules. Rick pulled a small slip of paper from his jacket pocket. This is the contact info for someone on the event staff that night. She saw everything and is willing to testify if needed. Dana jotted it into the file quickly. An eyewitness will seal the deal. Zoe, when we go to court, we won't just win, we'll make sure they answer to the public. I nodded, feeling a different kind of heat spreading through me, not anger, but a sharp clarity mixed with new strength. For years, I had only been on defense. Tonight, I would go on the offensive. The meeting went on for another hour as we split tasks. Dana would finalize the legal filings within 3 days. Rick would continue tracing my father's financial ties to broaden the investigation. My job: prepare my testimony, gather every relevant email message and recording from the past years. When we left the caf, the Austin night air was cool, but my head felt hot. In my bag, the USB with the video was like a ticking time bomb. In the past, I'd feared everything blowing up. Now I wanted that moment to come as soon as possible. Rick stopped, placing a hand on my shoulder. Zoe, once this goes public, there's no going back. I answered without hesitation, I don't want to go back. 3 days later, the case file was complete. Dana placed a thick envelope in front of me. Inside were all the legal documents, along with a copy of the USB containing the original video. It's showtime, she said, her voice calm, but her eyes sharp as glass. I've contacted Jenna Ward, an investigative reporter at the Austin Chronicle. Last year, she exposed a major embezzlement scandal and didn't shy away from going after powerful people. She's exactly who we need. We met Jenna at a quiet coffee shop downtown. When she arrived, her brown hair was tied back neatly, a laptop and recorder in hand. Without small talk, I set the envelope and USB on the table. In here, I said, is everything: video, financial records, emails, shell company info. If you decide to publish, release it all. But I want to remain anonymous until I have to appear in court. Jenna plugged in the USB and played the video. When my father's punch echoed in the room, her face froze. By the time she saw him dragging me toward the door, my mother laughing and Ethan clapping, she closed the laptop and took a deep breath. Zoe, this isn't just abuse. This is about power, money, and corruption. It's going to blow up. Exactly, Dana replied. And we want it to blow up in a way they can't put out. Jenna nodded. Give me 48 hours to verify and cross-check everything, and I'll run it. 2 days later, on a Monday morning, the Austin Chronicle published the investigation under the headline Businessman Thomas Walker and Son implicated in trust fund abuse assault allegations. The article included the original video, a breakdown of the money trail, and excerpts from emails between my father and Carl Benson. The story spread like wildfire. Within hours, the video was shared thousands of times on social media. Local news outlets and TV stations picked it up. Comments under the article were full of outrage. Who does that to their own child, and using your daughter's money to buy your son a promotion? Disgusting. My phone didn't stop ringing. Old friends, classmates, coworkers. Some offered support, others were quiet for a moment before saying, I always knew they treated you badly, but I didn't think it was this bad. But as Dana predicted, my family didn't sit still. Just 1 day later, a friendly news site published another video, spliced from a guest's camera. In this version, they cut out my father hitting me leaving, only the part where I reacted afterward, overdubbed with commentary, claiming I lost control and disrupted the event. Shortly after, my father's law firm issued a press release accusing me of distorting the truth for personal gain and damaging the family's reputation. They also filed a countersuit for defamation and asked the court to ban the distribution of the video. I read the complaint, my lips curling. They think this will scare me. Dana stayed calm. No. This is a preemptive strike to create doubt. We'll hit back immediately. Rick brought in a digital forensic report from an independent expert, proving their video had been edited with nearly a full minute deleted. Dana filed this with the court alongside the time-stamped original security footage and sent it to Jenna for a follow-up. Jenna didn't waste time. The next day, the Austin Chronicle ran a second piece evidence shows Walker family's rebuttal video was manipulated. The article compared the two videos, highlighting discrepancies, and quoted the expert, "This is a deliberately altered product to change the context." This time, the public backlash was even stronger. The hashtag #JusticeForZoe began trending on Twitter and spilled over to Facebook and Instagram. People who had known my family started sharing stories they had never dared to speak before. That night, I sat alone in my living room, my laptop screen glowing with headlines and comment threads. A new notification popped up, an email from an anonymous address. "You have no idea who you're messing with. This is just the beginning." I stared at the words, my heartbeat slowing, not from fear, but from the confirmation that they were losing control. And when they lost control, mistakes would come faster. I forwarded the email to Dana and Rick with a single line: "Get ready for the next move." The trial took place on a cold, gray Wednesday morning. In front of the Travis County Courthouse, dozens of reporters and cameras pointed straight at the main entrance. I stepped out of the car, Dana on my right, Rick behind me like a silent shield. Inside the courtroom, my father was already seated at the plaintiff's table, black suit neatly pressed, but with dark circles under his eyes and slightly hunched shoulders. My mother sat quietly beside him, eyes fixed on the stack of papers in front of her, avoiding all eye contact. Ethan sat further back, his face tense, a stark contrast to the confidence he'd shown at West Hill. When the judge entered, the air instantly stilled. Their attorney began with the familiar line, "Your Honor, my client has been defamed," but before he could finish, Dana rose, her voice steady. "Your Honor, we request that all evidence files be unsealed, including the original video and financial documents, to prove that this is not a case of defamation, but the raw truth of abuse and fraud." The judge glanced down at the case file and gave a slight nod. "Request granted. The court will review them publicly." Rick stood, walked to the witness stand, and presented the judge with a certified copy of the USB drive along with a technical report. When the video played on the large screen, murmurs rippled through the gallery. My father's punch landed with a loud thud, the scene of him dragging me away, my mother laughing, Ethan clapping, no frames missing. Next, Dana laid out the money trail, each withdrawal from my trust fund funneled through shell companies into Carl Benson's account, and finally into a training package that helped Ethan secure a promotion. Bank statements and internal emails made the scheme undeniable. The judge looked directly at my father. "Mr. Thomas Walker, this evidence demonstrates serious violations of both the law and ethics. The court will refer this case to the Criminal Investigation Unit." Their lawyer tried to interject, but his objections sounded weak. Ethan stared down at the floor. My mother still refused to lift her gaze. When the hearing ended, I stepped onto the courthouse steps. Reporters crowded forward with microphones. I stopped, speaking clearly without a tremor. "I've been called the problem of this family for years. They thought I'd stay silent forever. Today, I take my name back. This isn't just about answering for what they did. It's to say that no one has the right to use violence and fraud to hide the truth. This is my freedom." That quote appeared in afternoon news headlines. Within a week, my father's construction company lost 2 major city contracts due to ethical concerns. The board of directors pressured him to resign as CEO. Ethan issued a press release announcing his departure from the military for personal reasons, but everyone knew it was a direct consequence of the scandal. Rick forwarded me an internal company email from a source inside my father's firm. "It's time to clean house. Everyone's talking about the video." I didn't feel triumphant, like I'd won some battle. What I felt was more like a release, as if I'd set down a boulder that had been crushing my chest for years. I no longer needed their validation, and I had no desire to return to any role in the story they'd scripted. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment, warm yellow light falling over an unfinished painting on the easel. I picked up my brush and filled in a stretch of deep ocean blue. Each stroke seemed to erase a little more of the old fear. My phone buzzed Dana's message. "Zoe, congratulations. And proud of you." I smiled and replied, "Thank you. We did the right thing." Then I set my phone down and looked out the window. Outside, the city buzzed as always, but for the first time in years, I felt true quiet inside. Not because every wound had healed, but because I knew no one controlled me anymore. They thought this was revenge, but to me it was a declaration that I had stepped out of their shadow and would never go back. Zoe's story is proof that silence is not always the safest choice. Sometimes it only prolongs injustice. From being abused and financially exploited by her own family, she rose up, gathered evidence, worked with her lawyer, and exposed the truth to the public. In real life, there will always be relationships that seem impossible to cut off, but are actually chains that bind you. Like Zoe, when you are brave enough to let go, you not only reclaim justice, but also find true freedom. What do you think about Zoe's journey to reclaim justice and freedom? If it were you, would you choose silence or confrontation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt family stories.